Welcome to all of our listeners today, and we want to thank BLTV and all our guests to give some valuable updates to our community. We've been on hiatus the last few weeks to allow for some adjustments to the vaccine rollout and to monitor some of our declining cases and numbers as our economy gets back to normal. It's been a big challenge, but with proven leadership across the community and the support of our residents, we have weathered what we hope is the worst of this storm. If everything that we did over the course of the last year and a half has saved one life, it has been worth it. The best decisions are not always the easiest, and as elected officials and community leaders, we all understand that notion. Tennessee has been blessed over the last year. We have moved forward despite the challenges, but one of the things we've always been blessed with is residents who support our efforts and the leadership that has been placed in charge of the direction that we have taken as a state and as a region. Tennessee's always been blessed with many resources, including water. During even the depths of the Great Depression, our state was one of the poorest in the nation. Without electricity, there was no way to promote economic development. Thus was born the concept of public utilities offering power, cheap power, across the Tennessee Valley in order to accommodate growing needs of a community and as a nation that wanted economic development even during the worst of times. To quote FDR, he said, TVA should be clothed with the power of government, but possessed with the flexibility of private enterprise. So it was FDR and his administration that basically were the architects of what we call today TVA. So on today's broadcast, we want to welcome Mr. Jeff Lyash to the program. He is president and CEO of TVA. He previously was president and CEO of Ontario Power, president also of Chicago Bridge and Iron. He's got a mechanical engineering degree from Drexel University. He's an avid golfer and fisherman. He and his wife Tracy have 2 children. So we want to welcome today Mr. Jeff Lyash to BLTV Livestream. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Executive Haley. I'm really pleased to be with you today and really happy to talk about these important issues. Energy is just so vital to people's lives, and electricity right at the center of it.
So we know that during this pandemic, there's been a whole lot of challenges, not only just for local government, but also to our public utilities. So how has TVA weathered the storm with employees and with power demand and with finances during the pandemic?
Well, that's a great question. And, I thought you put out there one of my favorite quotes from FDR. And, just a little bit of historic perspective here I think might be good for the folks. TVA was founded almost 9 decades ago by FDR teaming up with a Republican senator from the Midwest, George Norris, a Republican and a Democrat who had no roots in the Valley but saw the great potential here to form the Tennessee Valley Authority. And, during this pandemic, the mission that we were founded with resonates even more strongly than it did then. And there's really 3 parts to it. Energy, plentiful, affordable, reliable, resilient, low-cost energy for the Valley. Our second mission is environmental stewardship, protecting the lands, the water, the air, and leveraging them to the benefit of the people who live here. And economic development, attracting good jobs and capital investment to the Valley to raise people's quality of life. So that was our mission 9 decades ago. It's our mission today. And I have to tell you, we execute this in very strong partnership with local power companies, as you mentioned. In your case, it's Katy Fork, and I know you know Bill Rogers, excellent executive, and McMinnville Electric, and that's Rodney Boyd. Both great partners of mine and TVA's. And together, we faced this pandemic, and our focus has been how can we help the people, the businesses, the communities through this period constructively. And Executive Haley, we've tried to do that through things like the Community Care Fund, where we and these local power companies provided matching funds that went to support people and programs. TVA actually lowered our rates 2.5% and returned that $200 million to communities across the valley so that they could support people who were struggling. And we're continuing to do that. And through it all, together, I think we've maintained a very reliable power system. We've, in fact, lowered the cost, and we've been able to continue to develop the economy.
Well, I know there's always challenges, and with climate change, storms and tornadoes and flooding have wreaked havoc across the valley to local providers and also to TVA. We've got a lot of unsung heroes across the state of Tennessee during those big challenging times, and like you said, Caney Fork and McMinnville Electric in particular have been great team players in correcting some of the damages as well. So as you see climate change and these weather-related incidents increasing, how is TVA poised to deal with those?
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts here. First, we have a very strong climate change adaptation program that we implement. And this is looking at the effects that changes in weather patterns are having on our system. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. We are in our third straight year of record rainfall in the valley. And of course, we manage the river system for recreation, but also to prevent flooding. So 3 years in a row, we've broken the record for rainfall and been challenged to manage that water through and out of the valley without damaging homes and businesses. And so we've taken a broad range of actions to make sure we're capable of handling that plus more. Another example is, think about what happened in Texas this past winter when that Arctic blast rolled through this part of the country. It was as cold in western Tennessee as it was in Texas, but our system didn't see any interruptions. We had plenty of power, we had highly reliable transmission, and the reason we're there is because over the past few years, we prepared for this by winterizing our power plants so they could operate at low temperatures, by increasing the amount of reserve generation we have in the winter, by making sure we leverage the power of this big system to keep people's lights on. So, Executive Haley, those are just a couple of examples of how we're managing changing weather patterns. The last piece I'd give you here is at the same time, we're driving down our greenhouse gas emissions. TVA has reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 64% against the benchmark. We're executing a plan to reach 70% reduction by 2030. We can see a path to 80% reduction by 2035. All that without jeopardizing reliability or driving up your cost. We're going to do this with flat rates. Getting beyond that is a technical challenge. We're focused on technology development to drive out that last 20% so that we can reach our aspiration, which is net zero carbon by 2050.
And I know the TVA is big into green initiatives and the Green Switch program. And as we convert as a nation, and particularly for the state of Tennessee, with our automobile manufacturing facilities switching over to electric and hybrid vehicles, what's TVA's plan about rapid charging stations and alternative energy sources moving forward? How are we going to meet the demands and the needs for millions of people with electric vehicles with the current power grid system and operations that we have in place today?
Really important topic. So if we are successful in decarbonizing the power sector, that's 27% of the economy-wide carbon emissions. So while you've eliminated 27%, 73% of the carbon emissions remain. Almost a third of that, or over a third of that, comes from transportation. Using TVA's low-carbon electricity, one of the lowest carbon per unit of electricity in the country, in order to fuel transportation through electric vehicles, reduce cost, and reduce carbon emissions is going to be a primary push in this effort. So TVA is working with local power companies and the state to get ahead of that. Recently, we put in place a number of foundational policies that will make it much easier for people to understand how to make these investments, recover their cost, and what price they will pay for power when they charge their vehicle. We've partnered with the state of Tennessee with what we call the Fast 50. This is high voltage DC chargers every 50 miles along the major thoroughfares, so that if you get in your car in Knoxville and you want to drive to Memphis, you know there will always be public charging infrastructure, safe, clean, secure, for you to stop and plug into to eliminate that range anxiety. We're looking hard at how to electrify our own TVA fleet, and we are working to attract these jobs of the future here to Tennessee, manufacturing electric vehicles, battery manufacturing, and the sub-suppliers. So we're focused on making sure we and your local power companies are prepared to meet this challenge as it develops over the next couple of decades.
Another question, just to follow up on that, do you see it being a public power initiative to provide these power stations, or do you see it like gasoline stations and being privatized for profit moving forward?
I think this is a staged process. So at the outset here, TVA is directly engaged in the Fast 50 and in building this initial wave so that we can move the process forward, much like we did with electrification. I think there's a wave of investment from local power companies in public charging infrastructure in your community, and likely in working with homeowners to help provide in-home charging. But behind that is a wave of private investment as the major corporations begin to look at how they can invest in this infrastructure. I can just share with you, I've had multiple discussions as an example with Pilot about the business model to add electric charging infrastructure to Pilot Flying J locations across the state. And I see as TVA jumpstarts, LPCs fill an appropriate space that will attract this private capital to build out this infrastructure. You know, one thing I might add, if you consider that on average, the folks we all serve in the Tennessee Valley make about $50,000 a year family income, 10% of that is typically spent on energy of all types, gasoline, oil, electricity. And if we can get cost-effective electric vehicles with reliable infrastructure, this change will save you about $1,000 a year in fuel costs because the electricity is cheaper than the gas, and it will reduce nearly half of your carbon emissions. So saving people money while you're protecting the environment is exactly in TVA's wheelhouse here. That's our mission.
But I would love moving forward to work with TVA to let us be a pilot community for one of these charge stations to be located here, much like we did when I was mayor and we got McMinnville being the first LED street-lighted city in the valley. So we'll continue that conversation forward. Maybe we can work out something to be a part of a green initiative and have some rapid charge stations here in Warren County.
Glad to engage with you on that.
In moving forward also, I know there's a big infrastructure bill coming out of Washington and the details have not been worked out, and Congress seems to be embattled and entrenched in political warfare more than maybe the well-being of the country. But with this new infrastructure bill coming down, which may hopefully create some results as during the Great Depression with the Work Progress Administration, the CCP, the TVA, and all the other agencies that were out there. A public infrastructure bill for roads and highways and sidewalks and parks could also include investment in power grids and electric grids across the nation. Do you anticipate any additional dollars coming to TVA or our public power utilities through this infrastructure bill?
Yeah, I think the energy infrastructure is going to be a significant part of this bill. As you pointed out, it's all still developing. But in order to make the energy transition we've been talking about, and that is to drive down substantially the carbon emissions from the electric generation sector, to use electricity as a primary lever for decarbonizing big segments of the economy, including transportation, it's going to take investment. We've got to retire our aging coal fleet. We've got to build new high-efficiency gas-fired units that will enable more solar power penetration into the system and help retire that coal. We've got to develop energy storage, bulk energy storage at an affordable price to backstand those intermittent renewables. We need to develop advanced nuclear designs that can make large amounts of carbon-free energy at low cost. And we're going to have to invest in the transmission infrastructure to be able to move these power sources around. I expect some of these topics, storage, nuclear, transmission, perhaps carbon capture, to all get some funding in the infrastructure bill. And TVA is monitoring, engaging with that closely. So if there are opportunities there for us here in the Tennessee Valley, we're in a position to take advantage of those.
Well, TVA has certainly changed lives over the course of nearly 9 decades. It was a total game changer for who we are as a state and the leadership from FDR and his administration to make that happen. Of course, as we move into the future and with technology changing, one of the big questions that people always have is how protected is our power grid against cyber attacks, and what has TVA done to protect our power sources from that exposure?
Yeah, this is one of the bigger risks to any enterprise today, cybersecurity, and the threats and attacks that come against that cyber infrastructure, you know, from people who are out for monetary gain to nation states that would attack our infrastructure systems for the purposes of disrupting business. TVA has in place an outstanding cybersecurity team and program. We are tied very closely. It's one of our advantages because we're owned by the federal government, to the intelligence network, to federal government's perspective and visibility into this. And we focus on cybersecurity each and every day, and we have a very robust program, particularly when it comes to our systems that provide operational control over this vast electric system. And we're not satisfied with it, though. We're continuing to invest. A good headline example is a new system operations center that we're building in Meigs County that will control our system and dispatch our system, which will be state-of-the-art, meaning the world's best cybersecurity controls, protected from threats like electromagnetic pulse, able to operate the system through events, and even to black start the system if there were something that caused a widespread power outage quickly. So we've got strong programs, we're constantly improving them, and we're investing the capital in this system that it takes to meet what we think is the condition of the future.
And that's all good news for us because it is critical to our survival. Last question before we kind of sum everything up is, I know over the course of the last few decades, there's been discussion about the need to privatize TVA. And as president of TVA, what is your biggest argument for keeping it the quasi-government, independent public power utility that it has been for the last 9 decades? Give us your argument for keeping it that way and not moving to something a little different.
Yeah, well, I would give you a few elements of that. First is, for your listeners, I spent quite a lot of my career running investor-owned utilities, including utilities that were exposed to an open competitive market, and so I understand that business model well. And we as a society went toward that business model about 25 years ago under the notion that a free market would drive the lowest prices. And frankly, what we're recognizing now, and you see it in Texas and the Southwest Power Pool, and what's happened in California and elsewhere, that with something as central to your life as reliable, high-quality, low-cost electricity, leaving that to a market with a short-term focus that doesn't really think about the arc of decades, produces the results you're seeing elsewhere with reliability or cost issues. In fact, some of the cheapest power in the country is right here. TVA, with our local utilities like McMinnville and Caney Fork, are lower than 80% of the utilities in the country. So in the cheapest 20% for price, we are the most reliable system in the country, year on year, 5 nines of reliability. We've been effective at lowering our greenhouse gas emissions and protecting the environment. And we can do that because we work together. TVA, local power companies, governments, communities, with a focus on what's best for the 10 million people we serve, and what's best in the short term, the intermediate term, and the long term. And so I would tell you that this model, this public power model in the Valley, which is unique, is proving itself in hard results. And that is the best argument for not undoing it, but rather strengthening it over time. It's the results. And I would just end this by saying to you, I believe, again, after decades in investor-owned utilities, I believe this public power model that we have here, these partnerships in the Valley with your listeners and TVA and local power companies, is a significant strategic advantage as we face all the technology change and regulatory change and investment that's going to flow here over the next 2 decades.
And that's good news. I know it's a big economic development tool, having safe and cheap and reliable electricity that does not go down, does not have blackouts. I think the debacle in Texas during the winter storm shows oftentimes how private utility companies just cannot adapt and mobilize as quickly as TVA can do. So we thank you for those efforts. As we kind of...
I just add, economic, what we're talking about really does drive economic development. Our industrial rates are lower than 93% of the utilities in the country. And the combination of high reliability, low rates, and small carbon footprint compared to the others is a big part of what is attracting business to Tennessee. It's what, for example, we just, with the state, landed the Ultium battery manufacturing facility for General Motors here in Tennessee. That's a $2.3 billion investment, almost 2,000 jobs. And I can tell you, when they were looking at where to locate that, those were the things they considered: reliability, cost, and environmental footprint. And Tennessee and TVA won on all 3 accounts.
Well, Warren County sure has appreciated. I know we have one of the oldest power stations and the oldest dams in the Tennessee Valley, so we have understood the importance of TVA to the lives of this region and local residents. So as we end our interview, I always ask, Tennessee, of course, is the volunteer state, and Warren County has always tried to be a team player in government agencies and across the region and the Southeast in particular. As Warren Countyans, what can we do to help TVA move forward as we look to the next 10, 15, 20 years with this ever-evolving, changing technology and all the challenges that are out there as the global economy starts to shift and change?
Mhm. I think there are a few things that are important here. First, just be informed. I would encourage your listeners, learn about this power system, learn about this public power model, and understand the value it's delivering to all of us, and advocate for it. It is a gem. It's a real strategic advantage. I think as TVA and this model started back in the Great Depression and into the 40s and 50s, people really understood the value it was delivering. I think over the last couple of decades, in a certain sense, the public's lost sight of that. I think just regrounding in that is helpful. The second observation I make is, and the advice I give your listeners is, engage. So as we make decisions about how to transition this energy system, how to leverage it with things like electric transportation, how to use it to benefit the disadvantaged communities across the Tennessee Valley, to attract jobs and support, how we deploy technology like broadband. These are all things that your local power company, TVA, have to partner with executives like yourself and with citizens to make sure we plot out the right path forward. So this, in addition to education, it's engagement that I think is would have the best impact here.
And thank you again for joining us. Any parting words that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I would. For your listeners, I would just say to you, my job and the job of everybody at TVA every day is service. It's to make the lives better for the 10 million people of the Tennessee Valley that we serve. I want you to know that's the way we approach our job. That's what we put at the front of every decision. And not every decision we make is easy or popular, but I can just tell you it's done with the people in mind, because that's what TVA was built for. It was built for the people.
And thank you for sharing those words with us. And Mr. Lyash, we welcome you back to McMinnville and Warren County anytime you're in the area. And we'll keep our discussions open about new green switch initiatives across the community as we move forward.
Absolutely. I look forward to visiting you again and to taking a tour of that Great Falls Dam Old Mill project we're all focused on. So thank you very much for the invitation, and I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
Okay.
We got other guests today joining us for BLTV. We've got Dr. Eric Greenfield from St. Thomas Ascension River Park Hospital to give us some updates on the hospital's view on the pandemic. We'll have Grant Swallows, Director of Warren County Schools. We'll have Beth Stevens from My Ride, which is a UCHRA transportation initiative that we're launching here in Warren County. So, Dr. Greenfield?
Thank you for having me. I wanted to give you an update on COVID. First, I'd like to say COVID is not gone, unfortunately. So, unfortunately, when we look at the trend throughout our hospital systems, since March, the trend line for COVID infections is actually going up, not down. And it's gone up and down, but we're experiencing the end of the third wave that everybody has been talking about. The numbers of people infected with COVID is a little hard to ascertain with good certainty, but approximately 20% of the American population has now had the COVID-19 virus. And in terms of vaccinations, in Warren County, approximately 27% of people have had their first dose, and about 20% of the people have had their second dose, which is completing the vaccination. That's higher than some of our surrounding counties, but it is a little bit lower than our urban areas. So one of the things I like to do is to encourage everybody to get vaccinated. It looks like COVID is not going to go away until probably about 3/4 of the population has either been recently infected with the virus or has been vaccinated. So we're approximately at 40%, so we're about halfway there. The vaccine definitely works. People that have completed both series of the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine, they have about a 95% reduction in serious illness. The transmissibility is uncertain, but it seems that people who have had the vaccine are much, much less likely to transmit the virus to others. One of the things that I always hear is people are concerned about the risk of the virus, the risk of the vaccine. And there is some risk with the vaccine. There's a risk with any vaccine or any medication or anything that we do. That risk is really tiny. One of the original concerns was risk of anaphylaxis. That risk is estimated to be less than 1 in 100,000, so it's very, very small. It's similar to other vaccines like the flu vaccine. What's been in the news recently that people have asked questions about is the issue with blood clots with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Again, that number is tiny. So there have been about 5 million doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine given, and there's been 7 reported cases of blood clotting disorders. So that's about 1 in a million. So it's hard to make analogies about these things, but I hear a lot of people saying, I'm healthy, or I don't like taking things, or I'm worried about this vaccine. I certainly understand that, but I think you have to make an analogy that you're only looking at one side of the equation. There is another side. The risk of COVID is very real. And when people look at that risk, they think about the risk of death. They might look at their age and say, well, there's a 99.8% chance if I get COVID, I'm going to live. That's true, but there's a high number of patients that get COVID, high percentage that get very, very sick, and it looks like a lot of them may stay sick for a year or maybe even permanently. And we don't know that because it hasn't been around long enough, but about 10% of the people that get COVID remain sick. 30% of the patients that have COVID, it looks like, or moderate to severe COVID, have permanent, what we think is permanent lung or heart damage. So there is some risk of the vaccine, but there's a very real risk on the other side of that equation of what COVID can do for you. So the car analogy would be like airbags in a car. Some people that have airbags in their car, they get hurt by the airbags, but people are far more likely to be protected by the airbags than they are to get hurt by them. And in this disease, it looks like you have a 75% chance of having a car accident. So I would highly encourage people to take the protection and get the vaccine. So the quick message would be continue to wear masks. I see a lot of people when I'm walking around the community still not wearing masks. Masks absolutely reduce the risk of transmission. They do protect you somewhat as well, so please wear masks. And I would highly encourage everybody to get vaccinated. We have the Moderna vaccine at the hospital. You can come by and get that. There's vaccines at Walmart, Walgreens, and several other areas. So please get vaccinated. I think I may take some questions, maybe if you have any.
So as a community, looking forward, should restrictions and a wide open economy take precedence over the health and welfare and safety of citizens?
That is the conundrum, I suppose. I think like all things in life, there needs to be some reasonableness. This has been going on for almost a year and a half. People are tired of being cooped up in their house. I live here too. I understand that. But this disease has not gone away, and it looks like it's still got quite some time. And if we get another variant, which it looks like it may happen, this could just drag on and on. So we have to take some reasonable precautions. In my mind, what reasonable is wearing masks when you're out in public, social distancing within reason. And if everybody would get the vaccine, that would greatly change the calculus of this. I think if everybody was to get vaccinated, you could open things up with a lot less worry. But it's going to have to be some give and take. It can't be one extreme or the other.
Another question people have been asking, what are the protocols at River Park on public access and visitations and overall policies within the hospital for allowing visitors in?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I think that changes every few days, so it's hard to keep up with. We do allow limited visitors. I think the current policy now is we allow one family member. We want our patients to have their family and visitors there. I mean, we don't want patients to be isolated in the hospital. On the other side of that is we have to protect everybody else, so we don't want a lot of traffic coming and going. If somebody comes in off the street, particularly if they're unmasked, it does pose a risk to everybody in the hospital. So we are allowing limited visitation, but we ask it to be one person and ask them not to come and go.
And the last question is, of course, the health department and various pharmacies have the vaccine, and so does the hospital. If one wanted to get vaccinated at the hospital, what should they do? Do they make an appointment? Do they walk in? What's the policy and protocol on vaccinations at the hospital by the public?
Yes, there's several ways you can get it. So there's an online link, and maybe I could send that to you if you want to distribute it. I'll make sure it's on the website, and you can just call also at the hospital and ask how you can get your COVID vaccine.
So thank you, Doctor.
Thank you for having me. Stay safe.
Good morning, Grant Swallows, Director of Schools. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to update you about our school system. We are a little over 4 weeks left in the school year, and as the children of Warren County rejoice, I just want to say that it has been a good, productive school year, yet challenging in all that we do. So I just want to give you an update about the health update that I've done all the way throughout this year. As of today, we only have 2 positive student cases that have been reported. Those are students that are in isolation. We only have 1 staff person that is reported in isolation. So we are very pleased with those numbers. We only have about 8 students that are quarantined and only 2 staff members that are quarantined due to that. So we have seen dramatic positive move in that direction for our school system ever since the end of Christmas break, the couple weeks in January where we went remote for a few weeks, and then just was mentioned, our staff and our community began to get vaccinated, and we've seen dramatic improvement in our school system when it comes to that. So I think as County Executive Haley asked, the question that I've gotten a lot is, when are we going to return back to normal? And so I will just say, we are cautiously optimistic. We are hopeful to return to what we know school is traditionally looked like. One of the biggest questions that we're asking or being asked are about the end of the year school ceremonies and different things that happen every year. And we are attempting as best we can to hold some of those ceremonies. They are going to be different. But it's really important in our school system that we give our students the recognition that they deserve, and we are going to do so and as best we can and cautiously. So with that being said, one of the events that is big in the life of a school is the prom. That is happening this Saturday at Warren County High School, and it will be similar, but there will be some changes. Obviously, it's always taking place inside. There is going to be an outside part of the venue, so students can go outside, stay outside if so choose. Hopefully there'll be good weather. If not, we do have it covered. Students will be asked to wear masks and distance as best they can. And so just use that as an example for really what we're trying to do. We're trying to offer our students as much of a great experience as they can have, but we are being cautious with making sure that we're following all our guidelines as we have done all year. Another important question that I've gotten are about end of the year ceremonies. All of our schools will be having ceremonies, but they will be limited for capacity, just as we've done all year long. They will be limited at 1/3 capacity. Elementary schools will be choosing their own methods. Some have chosen to do a drive-through ceremony as they did last year. Some of our schools are limiting to 1/3 capacity to go inside and still recognizing their students. Our high school will be having a traditional graduation ceremony, but it will be limited to 1/3 capacity. Each student will be getting 6 armbands so that they can give those to their family and friends. That's actually 2 more than we were able to give last year. And again, I will say this. It gives me no joy to limit these ceremonies. But at the end of the day, just as we've talked about, we are still dealing with a pandemic. We are still dealing with sickness. And so we are attempting to give the best experience possible in these ceremonies. and still make sure we are staying healthy. And so I appreciate everyone's patience as we work through those situations, and we are doing the best we can to offer a great experience. One thing that I do want to call to attention that is a very important thing going on in our school system is what we're calling an Acceleration Academy. This is a summer program that will take place. It will begin on June the 7th and will last until July the 1st. That's 4 weeks. It will be Monday through Thursday from 8 to 3. And students should have gotten invitations. This is for current kindergarten students through 7th grade. That will be next year's 1st through 8th grade students. This is one of the big terms that people have been talking about is learning loss and different things that have happened because of students losing time in school. This is an opportunity for us to help make up some of that lost time. And so again, it will last from 8 to 3 daily. We will be running transportation. We will be providing breakfast and lunch, and we will be giving students the opportunity to get caught up on some of the lost time that they've had. All students at this point should have gotten an invitation from their school. If you have not done so, I would encourage you to reach out to your school if you're interested in that Acceleration Academy. One of the other questions that we've gotten quite frequently is, what does next year look like? At the end of the day, one thing that I've learned this year is it's hard to predict the future. But I will tell you, one of the biggest questions is, are we going to have remote learning again next year? And I will say that we are going to have a remote learning option. It will not be the same as it was this year. The Tennessee Department of Education, even Governor Lee, has come out and said that we hope to return to a more traditional school year, 5 days a week next year. We hope to do that in Warren County. We will have a remote learning option, but it will be by application and it will be limited. This year, obviously, we allowed anyone that chose to do so to learn by remote through our VIP at Home program. Next year, we will be changing that. It will be an application process, and we will offer that to our students because we feel like it's important that we do that. But at the end of the day, there will be some restrictions on that. One of the things that I do need to clear up, there's some miscommunication going on that I've heard talking about VIP, is that any student that is VIP at home, and this is particularly pertains to the high school, VIP at home students will graduate with their enrolled school. So that would be at Warren County High School. VIP at home students will participate in the traditional graduation ceremony. The traditional VIP program, one that takes place actually on the campus of the middle school, they will have their own ceremony that takes place separately from the high school. It's a little confusing because they're both called VIP, but there is a traditional VIP program, and then there's the VIP at home program. If you have questions about that or are confused by that, please call the office and we'll get that taken care of for you. Again, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to update about Warren County Schools, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Beth Stevens. Thank you.
Hello, I am Beth Stevens from My Right Upper Cumberland. We're a division of UCHRA, and we're going to be offering a new senior transportation program coming very soon to Warren County. It's for seniors age 60 and over who can walk on their own or with a cane or a walker to go anywhere in Warren County. It's run by volunteers. I call it Neighbor Helping Neighbor, paying it forward to our seniors. They can go anywhere from grocery shopping to retail stores, beauty and barber shops, doctor's appointments, just down to the river to sit and watch the walkers. Anywhere they want to go, to pay bills, to pay taxes, anything they need to do in Warren County that we just all take for granted. And if you've ever noticed, the seniors, if you're riding on one of those motorized scooters in the grocery store or Walmart or anywhere shopping, they have extreme difficulty reaching anything over the second shelf or in the freezer section. Maybe just getting in and out of their homes, into the businesses, wherever they need to go. The volunteers are there to assist them every step of the way and just help them lead as normal a life and get back out into the world and enjoy, where a lot of people don't have the friends and relatives it's just kind of taken for granted. So it's getting them back out in the community and just enjoying their life again on as normal a basis as possible. We do train the volunteers. They run through the thoroughest of background checks because it is door-through-door transportation. They can go in and assist the clients out to their vehicles, help them in and out, stay with them and help them shop. Some people that may have vision problems, help them read labels, help them just get their shopping done, carry the bags in. It's just for the volunteer to be there to help the client any way possible. And UCHRA does train the volunteers and the clients, so everybody's on the same wavelength on how everything operates. And the volunteers use their own vehicle, but we do provide additional auto, medical, and liability insurance, and they can get mileage reimbursement or a certificate at the end of the year to turn in for their taxes. So the state requires us to have 10 volunteers to get the program started in a particular county. We already have it starting in Putnam and Cumberland, and Warren County is next on the list with the highest number of seniors in the county. So we're offering this to Warren County. So I am looking for volunteers to get this program started. It's an app on their phone. They self-assign their rides. Nothing is pre-assigned. They can see where the client is going, how many miles it is from their house, the time that they're wanting to go, and they self-assign. And it's just, we ask that they do provide one trip a month. That's all that's required. But we found in the other counties, once they get started helping the seniors, they do a little bit more. So, but all that's required is one trip a month. And we're just looking for the volunteers to get this program started, hopefully very soon, within the next month or so. So you can call 1-833-9MyRide, which is 833-969-7433. And if you would like to volunteer, we would love it. I know the seniors in the community would love it. And we're just anxious to get this program up and going for another operational transportation for the seniors here. So if I can be of any help, my name is Beth Stevens, and I'd be glad to talk to you and get this program going. Is there any questions? Okay, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Beth. Of course, the MyRide is like our own version of Uber or Lyft for seniors, and it's in addition to our U-Carts and our Upper Cumberland transit buses that are already out there on the road. So this will enhance the opportunity for seniors to be able to get out and to schedule visits and trips, particularly as COVID declines and the economy opens back up again and the senior center is back operational. It'll give more opportunity for seniors to adjust and get back to a normal life again. So thank you very much for that opportunity. And thank all of our guests today, Dr. Greenfield and Mr. Swallows, for giving us those valuable updates. As you know, as a county, we have been facing many challenges. We still have a 6 to 7% positivity rate across the county. That is one of the lowest in the Upper Cumberland, but it's because we have been proactive and we have done our best to try to contain and control this virus and its spread. As of today, we have nearly 19,000 people out of our county population that has been vaccinated, but with recorded cases of the variant here and more opportunities to spread it as the economy opens back up again, we are not out of harm's way just yet. So still taking caution is still the best practice. If you feel uncomfortable being in places where there's too many people or not wearing masks, then once again, protect your own health and welfare by using the protocols that the CDC and the health departments have set for us. The health department wanted me to share some schedules with you. Of course, the hospital provide vaccines and testing, as well as most of the pharmacies in McMinnville. But the health department, Monday through Thursday, has 9 to 2. No appointments necessary for vaccination. Other times are available if you will call and set up an appointment if you're on a time frame. COVID testing is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to 1. There's provider testing on Tuesday and Thursday from 9 to 11 by appointment. So we want to thank all of our healthcare providers, our pharmacies, for basically allowing us to be able to do the testing necessary to identify who is actively positive with COVID. And now as the rollout of the vaccines are there, it is the quickest, easiest, and cheapest way to return back to normal again. As far as updates from the county, Governor Lee is doing a press conference to talk about extending or basically releasing the executive orders that have been in place for the last year or more. And so I will be doing a press release a little bit later to conform to whatever Governor Lee has decided about extending his orders. In the meantime, the county will follow still our COVID direction and protocols within our offices and for employees, and we will adjust accordingly, according to the governor's orders. As a county, our court system is back open again with protocols in place in the courthouse. County buildings are open Monday through Friday as usual, with basically people registering, coming in, wearing masks. Our employee COVID pay is still being provided to our employees who may be ill or suffering under quarantine from the virus. There have been a few shortfalls in revenue for the county, but we're hoping the American Recovery dollars will basically restore some of that funding and our court costs and systems that have been on hold for the last year. When we look at moving forward as a community, I want to thank each and every one that has basically supported and cooperated our efforts as a community, as a team, over the last year and a half. It's not been an easy task. It never is. And those hardest decisions are never the easiest. And the choices that we have made is to protect the safety and welfare of each and every resident and to keep our economy going as much as possible. So our local businesses have survived the worst of the storm. There's been several that have not been able to survive, but we, moving forward, look to the future. As tourism opens up, as businesses open up, as more people are vaccinated, and as Dr. Greenfield alluded to earlier, until about 3/4 of our population is vaccinated, the threat of a new surge in the virus or another shutdown or worse could be part of what we have to plan for in the future. We certainly hope that is not the case. And so we'll be looking at doing some PSAs across the media in the next few weeks from healthcare providers, former doctors, current doctors, people in the medical community advocating the vaccinations across Warren County in order to make it a safer place for us to thrive, to keep our schools open, to keep our businesses thriving, and to return to essential normalcy. So as we move forward as a community, once again, thank you. Thank BLTV and all the media sources that have been providing the information out there to our citizens over the course of the last year and a half. I do want to leave you with a quote from the great entrepreneur Andrew Carnegie, who said, "Teamwork is the ability to work together toward a common vision, the ability to direct individual accomplishments toward organizational objectives. It is the fuel that allows common people to obtain uncommon results." Until next time, Warren County and our listeners, take care and be safe. We are Warren Strong.